Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a hot minute since I've posted a video, but it's been a couple of crazy weeks, which I might get into talking about a little bit later. I'm rocking a little farmer's vibe today. I've got some yard work to do after I'm done with you guys, but we're here to talk about being in the waiting. So before we get into it, let's go ahead and pray. Okay. God, we come before you and are seeking your wisdom and your guidance. This channel is yours, it's not mine. I ask that you speak through me, use me as a mouthpiece to encourage your people. Have you increase while I decrease. Holy Spirit, speak through me everything that you want to say. And we love you because you loved us first. I ask these things in Jesus Christ's name. Alright guys, so, like I said, been a crazy couple of weeks. So, we're getting into it here. It's been a little longer than normal. Alright, our video today is all about being in the waiting. And if you've watched the last video, we were talking about how God always keeps his promises. But usually between the time when he tells you about your promise and when the promise actually happens, there's a good gap of time. Sometimes it can be 6 months, sometimes it can be, 30 years or half a lifetime if we're talking like Abraham and Sarah sort of promises, okay? So the thing is, what we do in the meantime, because you're thinking about that promise, let's face it, whatever the promise may be, it could be a career, it could be a job, opening your own business, it could be a house, a car, a marriage, a family, whatever it may be. You're thinking about this promise because God told you about it and you're waiting on this promise. But what else to do in the meantime? Because God uses these waiting periods to teach us multitudes of lessons. Let's face it, I don't think he does anything in our lives without there being some sort of underlying lesson that we need to learn. Or at least it is all the time with me. I don't know about you guys, but hey. So we're going to go into scripture to see a few of the things we should be doing in the waiting, things that God teaches us in the waiting while we're waiting for our promises, all right? So we're going to start with Hebrews chapter 13, verse 5. If you have your Bibles, you can go ahead and open them and turn there. I already have it written down on my notes, so I'm just going to read it off there. It says, "Let your conversation be without covetousness, and be content with such things as ye have. For he has said, I will never leave thee, nor forsake thee." And I think one of the biggest things that God teaches us in the meantime, in the waiting, is to be content where we are, and to be content with our circumstances, but mostly to be content with him. So even though, we're really excited about this promise, we're anticipating it, we're on the edge of our seat waiting for it to happen, God really wants to teach us to be content in him and to kind of let it go a little bit. It's okay, I'm looking forward to this promise, I'm excited about this promise, but God, if you never give it to me, if it never comes to pass, I will be content. That sounds so easy, right? Isn't always the easiest thing, and it's something that you work on and cycle through over and over again. You might be content one day, and the next day not so much, and then the next day, oh, okay, we're pretty content again. 'Tis life. But what I like the most about this verse is at the end, it's talking about being content, but it's because you can be content because God says that he will never leave us and he will never forsake us. So no matter what circumstances he has us in, no matter where we are in our waiting or in our walk with God, he won't leave us. Even when crazy stuff goes down, even when it feels like your world's falling apart, even when you just have a really, really rough day, God is always going to be there. And I think, honestly, that's probably the best part of that verse. So we're talking about being content, and going along with being content is also doing the works that God has for you right now. So you may be looking forward to that career change or whatever, but if God has you working, in an office cubicle right now, and maybe that's not what you want to be doing, it's not what the promise is, but that's where God has you right now. It's doing the works that God has prepared for you, and not just doing them, with a grudging attitude and being all, cranky about it, but doing the works he has for us now and doing them cheerfully, like we're doing them for God. Because ultimately we don't work for man, we do work for God, and God is the one who's going to be judging us at the end and being like, okay, did you do the works I had set for you? Did you do them with a cheerful heart? Did you show my love to other people? If you go back to the abiding video, doing the works comes after we are secure in our relationship with God, and it's spilling out God's love from us, overflowing to other people, is what God's work for us usually involves. So doing those works while we are in the meanwhile, and being content with whatever season of life he has you in, whether that's a season of singleness, whether that's a season of job hunting, a season of, being married but with no kids, or, whatever it is, whatever that promise is, God has you in that season for a reason. Didn't mean to rhyme there, but totally ended up cute. So he has you in the season you are, and there's a reason behind it. And so he wants you to be content with where you are, knowing that, yes, the promise will come. It may take a while to get there, but in the meanwhile, he has things for you to do. And I know that's not easy. There are days when you're like, but God, I've been waiting for this promise forever. Like, when is it going to show up? Certain situations could end up so much easier if this promise was already here and, ready to go. I mean, I had a few of those moments this past week where I'm like, but the promise would have made this situation so much easier. But in those moments is when you turn to God, and God is your fulfillment in that, because whatever the promise is, doesn't matter how big of a promise it is, how small of a promise it is, it's not going to take God's place in your life. And that's what he really wants to teach us in the waiting too, is that to lean on him and not on the promise, because the promise is not going to fulfill you at the end of the day. Only God can do that. So on those bad days, on those days when it's like, God, I'm sick of waiting. What are we doing here? On those days, I find it very, very helpful to count your blessings. And so we're going to hop on over to James chapter 1, verse 17. It says, "Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variableness, neither shadow of turning." And every good gift, every good thing in your life, every beautiful thing in your life is from God, okay? So on those days when you are like, I just can't deal with this anymore, your emotions are all over the place, you're down and out about it, you're just having a rough day. What I find to be super helpful on those days is to go back and, if you're a journaler like I am, writing down in my journal and making a list of all the blessings that God has put in my life. Whether that be, having a home, having family that loves me, having a garden, all of the little blessings, even something like, being able to see the sunset from my window, watching the fireflies out in my backyard in the evening time, and how pretty that is. You just write down all those little blessings, big or small, and then you have this whole list, and by the time you are done writing that list, or you get to the point where you're like, okay, I've written enough, by the time you're done, your emotions and your feelings have usually changed, and you go from being ungrateful for all of the things and being so focused on that promise to being like, God, you really do take care of me. And through thick and thin, you take care of me no matter what. Thank you for all of the blessings you've given me. It's a good mind shifter. Now, let's see, when we're also in these waiting seasons, which can be long, God is usually has things that we're going to be working on, whether that's, a job, this and that, but he's also using the time to work on us, on our hearts, on our minds, on the inside. So back in the video we were talking about abiding, he is the vine, we are the branches. We stay connected to him, and even the branches that do bear fruit and, live good lives and stuff like that, he will come and he'll prune them, snip little things off here and there so they can bear even more fruit. So in the waiting, you may be bearing fruit, but he's gonna take you and do a little pruning, bad habits that need to go, whether that's, eating habits or bad exercise habits or, procrastination or, whatever it is you're dealing with that is particular to you and your situation. He's going to prune those off of you in the waiting and in the meantime, and he's going to use different circumstances and different things to do that. And it's all so that way when we do get the promise, all of those little bad things, or at least a good majority of them, should be pruned off of us by then, so we will be ready to receive the promise and be prepared for whatever that promise entails. So if that promise is, just making stuff off the top of my head here, if that promise is a new career, you're going to open your own business, like some sort of business. You're going to open a business, but you're going to have a business partner. And maybe that partner is like, you don't know this person yet, but maybe they're super into like artistic expression or something, and God has you working on being more creative even though you're not good at it. So he's like, oh, sit down and play the piano, or sit down and try and do a sketch, or whatever it is, he's going to prep you for it in the meantime. And it may seem like, well, God, why am I doing this? I'm bad at this. Why are you asking me to sit down and try and learn how to play an instrument? God, why are you asking me to sit down and do this? God, but who knows, that business partner down the line might just be really into artistic stuff, and that's how you two are going to meet and end up with a business. I don't know. God pulls stuff together in crazy ways all the time. And so whatever he's asking you to do in the meantime, whatever he's preparing you with in the meantime, you don't know exactly what that's going to, do later on, or how it's going to benefit you later on. But in the meantime, he's having you work on them. And so you work on them, and it'll be a good part of your promise when it happens. You never know exactly what God's plans are until after things have happened, and then, hindsight is 20/20, so you're like, oh, that's why you had me X, Y, and Z, And with the pruning and the waiting, he's also having us work on our patience. So we're going to hop to James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4. It says, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. So I don't know about you, but the first time I read that verse, count it all joy when you're falling into temptations, I was like, what? Like, it made no sense to me at the time. I was working through a good deal of temptations in my own life, and I was like, why would I count it joy when I'm struggling with something? It made no sense at the time, okay? But on the other side of those temptations and working through those and pruning those things out of my life, I can see on this end of things, like, why God pruned those things off and how it helped my life. And you see the hindsight, and you're like, oh yeah. So even though it was tough in the time, it ended up being joyful now on this side. So that's why he's saying count it all joy, because on the other side of this struggle is good things. On the other side of the trying of your faith, you end up with more patience, you end up with more kindness, you end up with the fruits of the Spirit. You just end up being a better person all around as your faith gets worked through all of the waiting and the being in circumstances you don't want to be in, but you're here because God put you here, and so you're waiting for him to change those circumstances, and he's given you all the tools so you'll be ready when it comes time for those circumstances to change. But while you're here, He's working your patience. He's working your relationship with him to make it closer. He's just working on you in general. And through you, he is helping other people. All good things. And like I said before, working during this season of waiting, one of the best things that you can do, instead of, being impatient or turning your promise into an idol by thinking about it too much, worrying about it too much, praying for it, just doing too much, obsessing over it, which some people have a tendency to do, myself included from time to time. Instead of obsessing over it and making it this big idol way up here, okay, just kind of let it go and work on taking all that energy that you would have used to do that and use it to make your relationship with God closer. So diving into his word, abiding with him more, listening to more worship music, praying more, just getting that closer foundational relationship with him, because that will carry you through all the struggles, through all the waiting, all the little mini catastrophes that happen in the meantime. Through all of those things, that relationship with God will carry you through and will be the foundation of your life. So even though waiting is hard, and sometimes things can happen that are not so fun, it's all for your good in the end. And it doesn't seem like it some days. I know I have those days where it doesn't seem like it. We had a couch-tastrophe a few weeks ago. Up until this week, it's been going on for a while. What should have been a simple process of go to store, buy couch, get couch delivered, couches in your home, enjoy couch, has taken so many twists and turns and ups and downs and craziness. I can't even, guys. It's been a mess. And through this mess, I'm sitting here and you're experiencing all the emotions, anger, frustration, disappointment. And I'm like, God, what is going on? This was supposed to be something super simple, and it's turned into something incredibly complicated and crazy and obnoxious. And I know intellectually in the end, you're going to work this all out for my good. I know this is all going to be a part of your plan. I know this is all going to end up okay in the end, but in the meantime, this is a pain. Help me out here, And you have those days where it's just but those days, again, that is when that foundational relationship with God, speaking God's truth over the situation and over your life, is going to really help you through it. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have God. If I didn't have God, that's the whole scenario with the couch could have been even crazier than it was. But I kept just saying it over and over to myself. I'm like, God, you work things together for the good of those who love you. This is a part of your plan. You are going to somehow turn this so it's for our good. I don't know how. I can't see the puzzle pieces coming together just yet. But you've got this. And being able to have that relationship and go back to him just makes it all better. It does. The situation may still be tough. It may still be kind of a pain. But I know in the end he's going to work it out. Just like I know in the end he's going to come through on his promises. He keeps his word. Always. And that is the foundation of everything. Is his word. He keeps it. He loves us. We love him. And so in the waiting, be content. Or at least try to be content. Work on being content. Work on your relationship with God to get closer to him. Okay? Counting those blessings on those really hard, tough days, for sure. And even if you're not having a hard day, it's always good to write down a list of all the things that God has done for you. It just helps you have a bigger perspective on your life, instead of just focusing on the little day-to-day stuff. And working on yourself. God's going to work on you. He's going to prune off the bad stuff. You're going to work on having patience. But it's all working out for your good. Even on the rough days, it's still going to work out for your good. And I pray that you have that foundational relationship with God so that way you can have that security in those days, because those days can be rough. But He's the best thing. He's the best remedy for those rough days. All right. I think that's about the end of this video. So we will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.